Welcome to Bold Talk series, where creativity, leadership, ideas, innovation come together. My name is Epi Ludvik, and today I have a privilege to have a short one-on-one conversation with Christian, CEO at ITONICS. Christian, great seeing you. Welcome to our Bold Talk series. How are you?
Fantastic. Well, thanks for the opportunity to speak. Great to be on your show. And yeah, let's just kick it off. I think we'll have a very interesting discussion planned for today.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. So, Christian, first, what first pulled you into the world of innovation, and when did it shift from a career to something deeply personal?
That's interesting. I thought about this, and there is one thing that I cannot stand, and that's waste. Waste of time, waste of talent, waste of resources. And so what I saw was that innovation, which should be a very strategic function in a company, was usually the most chaos, the most chaotic, the most inefficient. So there is no system, no focus, no real outcomes. We often use the term quote unquote innovation theater. So we're building ITONICS to actually fix that, because innovation done right is a game changer. It's a game changer for growth, both for business growth and then also for personal growth, to be honest. Yeah? So it's a growth engine. But if it's done in the wrong way, it is just a pure waste of resources, a pure waste of human resources, financial resources, and maybe the most valuable resource, which is time. So done right, it is perfect for growth. And that's what our clients today. And that's what brought me and also my fellows at ITONICS to the game of innovation.
That's great. Well, so Christian, so you held a number of roles in ITONICS, I guess, right? And what experience during that time most profoundly shaped how you lead the company? And also, what type of blind spots in corporate innovation do you see, especially when it comes to the innovation operation systems that we have?
Yeah, I think that there was one important realization, and it is that leadership actually matters most in hard times. Because in easy times, to be frank, always anyone looks like a decent leader. Pretty simple. When everybody, when everything is going great and everybody's buying anything, corporates just pour money on everything. Well, it's easy to be a good sales leader, for example. When the pressure is on, when it gets tougher, that's actually where, vision, where resilience and relentlessness is needed. And those are the moments when you can prove who you are to yourself, but then also to your fellow peers. So that's one thing. And then the second thing also is about trust. That's maybe the most important currency in this arena. And trust is earned. Trust is earned over time through tough decisions, but not just through good weather. And I think I kind of learned to remove a little bit of personal chemistry from professional respect. So I might enjoy someone else's company and still not be with them in the business, or I the other way around. I like to, drink beer with someone, but we may not as well get along in business. So you need clarity, you need a backbone, and I think that's important, and specifically in tougher times. So there's good times and there's tougher times. Simple as that.
Wow.
And about the blind spots, if I may comment on that, I think that's super interesting. A question, because from the experience that we make, many companies do not really know where they are heading. And if you don't know where to play, how do you know what to build? You cannot innovate in a vacuum. And that's the blind spot, because innovation is fragmented, it is reactive, it is sticky notes, it is disconnected from strategy often. So that means isolated tools, scattered ideas, and so on. Yeah. So we build ITONICS to connect the right level of foresight with ideation, with execution in one system. And today, this might seem obvious, and that's why we see many companies now following that same approach. But when we started, it was not that obvious.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, you said very well. If you don't know what you're building for, it's very hard for you to, know where you're going. And I think a lot of times I was actually, I'm not sure if you know the guys at Vivaldi Group. He's also German, by the way. Eric, I forgot his last name. It's also another hard last name to pronounce. And we're talking about the types of innovation. It was talking about the most of the companies are stuck with doing this type of sustainable innovation, disruptive innovation. If you're thinking about the forward future thinking innovation, where you kind of exactly where you're going to go, and then you build it from you know um, reverse engineering and start to find one area that you can solve that problem and start building up. That's a much better approach and faster and more clear for everyone. So innovation has evolved a lot. I've been in crowdsourcing world for many, many years, over a decade, and
Mm.
seen all types of innovation coming across. And you've spoken with some most forward-thinking innovators, leaders in your podcast, which is called the Innovation Podcast. What conversations challenged your own beliefs the most?
So it's a great question, and I've thought about this for some time. I think the one episode that was very challenging was actually the one where I had ChatGPT itself as a guest. I think that time we took the Model 4.0, if I remember correctly. And what we did is we actually discussed whether AI will replace creative jobs first. And we kind of concluded that for now, AI is more like an amplifier of creativity. I mean, any domain, it could be the marketing domain, could be the business domain, could be even, the creative domain, even music or whatever. And it probably will take a longer time for an AI to be a plumber than a creative resource. I don't know, just imagining me being at home and there is an issue in the bathroom, and then, there is some, I don't know, humanoid robot, I don't know, trying to go into my house, go down the stairs or up the stairs and fix something in the bathroom. It's just harder to imagine than using AI as creativity tools. And that's interesting because that has changed only in the recent 2 or 3 years. Everybody thought human creativity, human ingenuity is kind of our sole domain. And turns out it's not,
Yeah.
because there are great tools out now. Look at Veo from Google, DeepMind. Look at Suno AI for music generation. There's a lot more, and it's interesting because it gives non-creative people an excellent head start. You basically don't have any baseline creativity, and you kind of get to a good base level. But then, if you're highly creative, it totally gives you an edge because it's amplifying the creativity you have by, I don't know, 10x, 100x. And in that conversation from the podcast was directly with ChatGPT. We just gave it a voice,
Mhm.
and that was kind of interesting at that time.
Yeah. When was that?
It should be more than a year ago now, one and something a year ago.
Yeah.
So mid,
Maybe it's probably time for the second part with the latest edition.
yeah. Actually, yes, I just thought the same thing when I reviewed the episodes earlier today.
So in a world obsessed with hype, there's always new shiny things coming out. How do you identify signals of lasting change and translate them into opportunity before others do?
Yeah, I think the thing that's important is to maximize the so-called signal to noise ratio. Because many teams still chase the noise, yeah, so the next shiny thing. But it's more about uncovering patterns to find signals, yeah. So we help companies look for patterns, but also pattern shifts, and not just trendy buzzwords, because it's pretty easy to find trendy buzzwords. Yeah. So it's about identifying weak signals at first, but then watching convergence, watching patterns. And still, if you get this right, that's nice. But then at the same time, you need to kind of be sure to a certain extent about what does it actually mean for you. Yeah. So you can understand signals. Okay, great. But if you're interpreting the wrong way or not acting or nobody's listening, yeah, then you, of course, you can come up with a, I don't know, 100-page long deck report of, hey, these are the signals that we see, and that's something. But if nobody's listening, there's basically no impact. So it's about maximizing the signal to noise ratio by looking at patterns, pattern shifts. And of course, AI is basically predetermined to do so. And that's strongly connected to uncertainty itself, right? And I think uncertainty is not a bad thing. It's actually an underrated opportunity. Most leaders, most people fear uncertainty, but uncertainty is not optional anymore. So you kind of have to read the signal beneath the noise, and then you can really compound your game if you stay in the game, if you're not hopping around, if you're still there after a recession or two or three, people will trust you. Yeah, so that's strongly connected to uncertainty and making sure you actually understand the patterns behind it.
Interesting. You're saying that uncertainty is the underrated opportunity. A lot of people, when the uncertainty happen, they end up contracting. They end up saying like, well, we got to cut the budgets, we got to cut this, we got to cut
Yeah.
that. How do you take the step forward and say, you know what, I'm not going to be afraid of it. Like I'm going to be bold here and take the next step. Like how do you measure that you should step into something in these uncertain times?
So I think in general, it is of course a good idea to make sure you have good cost control, but not only in times where uncertainty is high, to be honest. I mean, it's very easy to be a little bit more loose on budget, on spending if times, are better. But to be honest, why should you even do that even when times are better? This goes back to the very first question we discussed about waste. Why even waste resources, including financial resources in good times? Same for bad times. So sometimes I don't understand, why if you're not forced to, look at budgets and be much more rigid in spending specifically in tense times. Of course, I get it. I mean, you want to make sure, specifically if you're a publicly traded company, to be super attractive still. And so there's specific dynamics in there. But overall, if you stay bold in an uncertain time, but you go in the right direction, well, of course you're bold but broke. And so you need to be very surgical
Mm.
about the boldness. Yeah, if you're headless and say, oh, everybody, now let's double down investments because nobody else is doing it, so let's do it and see what happens. Most of the time, it's not a good idea. That's why I say you need to be very surgical
Mm.
about it. But if you are surgical and a little bit strategic, and for example understand where certain, for example, offerings on the market have a weakness, and you do see an opportunity because you're actually strong, and you could, if you double down investments, actually win a specific market segment or in a specific region because competition is struggling right now. Well, yeah, that's an opportunity to double down investments and be bold in that respect. And if you need to, get some more funding from other stuff, you stop and then you reinvest all the money into there. Well, okay, fantastic. But that
Yeah.
requires some maximizing signal to noise ratio and really understanding these specific opportunities. So that's why I mean there is opportunity and uncertainty. And you kind of, if you fall back into a mindset that's very passive and that's very fearful, and you're kind of, blocking yourself from um, the vision of the potential opportunity, then of course you're going to fail.
Yeah, and that leads me to the question in terms of the what's one of the small, often overlooked habit that you believe separates resilient innovation leaders from the rest. Well, what is that?
It's a great question. I did a TEDx talk about this, specifically about resilience, and I kind of shared three habits that separates resilient people. That could be innovation leaders, but any sort of leaders from the rest of the pack. And the first one is actually creating rituals. And by rituals, kind of meaning routines. So anything that gives you at least some sense of stability, of repetition in times where they are uncertain. So you have a strong core that you can go back to, and that's true for team rituals, but that's also true for personal rituals, like protocols you can activate. And it just doesn't really matter what it is. It can be a protocol for even the most basic things. Yeah, it could be for nutrition, for health, for sport, for social gatherings, for whatever, but also for team meetings, for strategy meetings, and so on. So to have rituals that kind of ground you and that you can fall back to in case you feel that stuff outside is kind of
Mm.
overwhelming. That's the first thing. Then the second thing is it's kind of connected to your boldness. I called it relentlessness in that case. You must not stop because we discussed it before, but I think it's specifically in the harder times where you can really prove yourself if you're a good leader or not, and not in the good times. So specifically in maybe times that are a little bit more challenging, you need to be relentless. You really need to pull through. If you found your thing, if you're convinced, great. And if not, maybe it's the wrong thing anyways. But if you found your thing, if you're convinced that this is a good thing, whether it's your product, your company, whatever it is, yeah, then you need to be relentless about it and not make sure you want to run away if it gets difficult. And so that's number two, relentlessness. And number three is reinvention. Because we also have to understand that, yeah, a part of resilience is that you reinvent yourself. over time. There is this, this theory about the quadratic waves. Yeah, your listeners might be well familiar with it, where basically, you have a couple of decades of change, oftentimes coming from technology, going back to steam and electricity and the internet, and now maybe AI, maybe not. We don't know. You always know in hindsight what the big waves of transformation actually were. We might think it might be AI, but it might be a different thing. You always know later. But the time span in which these things occur, they are getting shorter and shorter. They're coming down from 6 decades, 5 decades to maybe just 2, 3 decades of change. And then the next thing already happens. And these are the big transformation cycles. But our careers are now longer. And also our lifespan is longer. Within one generation of a human, you have more, at least one or two, maybe even three of these bigger transformations coming up in the future. So that also means you kind of need to adapt. You need to learn new skills, do something different, make sure you're jumping the S curve. Yeah. So that's number three, reinvention. So you have rituals, relentlessness, and then reinvention, which ultimately will help you give you much more resilience. And again, that's true for innovation leaders, but that's basically true for oneself as well.
So that's a triple R. That's a good way
Yep.
to end, Christian.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, this is awesome. I always ask this last question to my guests, and the question is, what does the word bold mean to you personally?
Great question. I'm leaning towards being bold, but not being headless. Because I see that sometimes, same with innovation, by the way, but sometimes it's a little bit misunderstood in that. So that means you need to be fearless. You need to just try to, I don't know, run through the walls, be headless, do whatever it takes. But I think you need to be smart. So I think smart boldness, strategic boldness is actually something that brings up great results. But I would maybe say that if you're just bold for the sake of being bold or appear fearless, that's probably a wrong interpretation of it.
Yeah. And be a little bit surgical, right? Like you
Yeah.
said, Christian, it's so great to have you here. Thank you for joining this Bold Talk series. Looking forward to have many more of these conversations in the future. Until the time, take care, enjoy your summer, be great, and be bold always. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye
Thank you.
bye.